So, Mike, what is awareness as far as a subject at this school?
Yeah, awareness is one of those weird words, right? Like it means different things to different people. Situational awareness for the tactical types, and overall awareness and being aware of your surroundings if you're in a strange environment, like a parking lot at night. But it's more encompassing than that. It's also more detailed than that and more in depth than that. Let's start with your senses. People will look at our website and go, awareness class. What are they gonna do? Give me a bucket of awareness? No, we're not gonna give you a bucket of awareness. We're gonna share the techniques to not only get that bucket, but to just immerse yourself in an ocean of awareness, really. And the cool part is you already have the skills. You just haven't been trained in them. And when you awaken those senses, there's a warning attached to them. You don't ever want to turn them off because of all that you missed floods in. Those intuitions and those, how did I know that deer was going to be there or that that person was going to stop at that traffic light? They become everyday commonplace, and you start to track a more in-depth energetic move through systems. You read systems, but you don't lose the detail of individual um, components like body language cues or the way a leaf is creased, ripped, torn, avulsed, punctured to determine whether or not it was a claw mark or a mouse footprint or the compression of somebody who had lugs on their boots in those leaf litter situations. It doesn't turn off. And you're using your entire sensory suite, your whole antenna array all of the time. You know what it really is? Awareness is awakening those things we had as children before the institution kind of trained us to shut them down. And it's faster than thought. So, your sense of touch, for instance, being mindful of the weight of your clothing and how the warm spots and cool spots that surround you fluctuate due to the movement of the sun or you through shadow and shade makes you aware of wind changes. That doesn't sound like much, but if you're a hunter, you know what that means. We are one of very few animals in North America that use their eyes as their dominant way of interpreting the world. Many, many others use their sense of smell. And you don't have to be a hunter to appreciate this. You can be a photographer. You want to see more wildlife? Pay attention to what your skin is telling you all the time. Rapt attention. In essence, get your senses out of the hospital bed, as Tom Brown Jr. once said. Your sense of sight. You know we use our sight wrong as a society. Through reading and television and these things, these Star Trek devices, we tunnel in like horses with blinders. And our sight, our dominant sense, directs the rest of our senses. And I'm sure you know this. You've got sucked into a television show, or you see somebody on a screen and then they are startled because they didn't realize you entered the room, let alone were talking to them. And if you don't believe me, you've never driven in traffic when people are on their cell phones, truly believing they can multitask and driving worse than a drunk ever could. So if we know that our sight directs the rest of our senses, why aren't we in wide angle vision all the time? Because if you could see through the periphery 80% of your life or greater, then you're accessing both hemispheres of your brain simultaneously. It has nothing to do with your eyes. Your lenses, your irises, they don't change when you enter wide angle vision. It has everything to do with how you use the information that your eyeballs are giving you all of the time. And it's a broader spectrum of information that utilizes both the rod and cone cells of your eyes, thus improving your night vision. It offers equal field of focus from this close to 300 yards out, and it allows you to detect not just the slightest motion, the flick of the ear of a snowshoe hare that would otherwise have blended into the snow, but also activates the rest of your senses to detect all that you see. Pretty cool. And that's just with your eyes. So we get all of your senses not just working at peak, but we get them to work together to create a harmonic. And it's that harmonic, that bubble of what we notice, that gets pushed outward. We're not listening for the subtle fluttering of wings 300 yards out. We're listening for the silences all around us. Now, you hear everything. When you try to identify the location, size, and shape of those areas of silence, the once unnoticed song of a sparrow, a field sparrow, painting a picture of an area you may have never been before as a wide open space, just at the presence of that song. And when it suddenly stops, you notice. You notice that it's a cone-shaped silence sweeping through, indicating a hawk passing by. We call that area or bubble of awareness around you your sphere of awareness. And once you can push that sphere of awareness beyond your sphere of disturbance, well, that's kind of the secret of invisibility, isn't it? That's how the deer move through neighborhoods unseen. You understand that there are ripples or concentric rings in the forest just by you slamming your door at the trail's head, or the group of people excitedly talking as they move past your position, your campsite, and only a few of them even notice you. Most people, when they move through the woods, it's with their sphere of disturbance much larger than their sphere of awareness. We need to switch that around a little bit. And if you don't believe this applies to your daily life, you're missing out on more than I can ever explain to you. A lot of opportunities, a lot of reading the energetic before you enter a room or the building or the traffic patterns, and being proactive in learning how to avoid blockages, imbalances, and lack. The antithesis of all three of those are flow, balance, and bounty. And I think we could all use more of that in our lives. So that's what these awareness pieces are all about. It starts with the physical. It moves into a more environmental piece. So you're learning how to, quite literally from the ground up, learn about tracking the rhythmic series of dents in the ground that once broken indicates a track. Maybe that's where that fox decided to scent post, or that person noticed the house, or decided they were lost. And you start to interpret those tracks and those trails and those track patterns and those track clusters, those rubs, those lays, those burrows, those scrapes, not as lifeless individual features, but like words in a book. They reveal characters interacting with each other. And one of those characters is the weather. And so we do field meteorology because it affects not only our mood and how we act throughout the day, but it does the same for every living creature out here on this landscape in fairly predictable patterns, again, 80% of the time or more. And we notice the limb leans on the trees and the flattening of the bark around the trunk where the sun hits them most, and it dawns on us we could use the trees as navigation tools, not just to melt spots this time of year. And the way the clouds move across the sky in that western dominant fashion. However, any variation, wind from the south brings rain in its mouth, but a cool north breeze clears the skies and makes us cold and dry. So we learn field meteorology as well. I would say, if you're going to learn awareness, start with quieting your mind and opening your senses, because you're only lost when you have a place to be. The time to get there. That's all, folks. How's that?